Welcome back to What Would You Do? This is a show where we talk about real issues that coaches really face, and we ask the question, what would you do? And one of the fun things is you get to tell us what you would do. Let us know if you think we're right, we're wrong, if we're crazy. How would you handle this situation? Mitch, today I have a situation that I've run into very recently where someone is dealing with a repeating pattern. It's just like they're existing in this one loop of a story, and they're very clear about what the story is. They truly believe with all their heart that they are not worth good things. They don't deserve it. They don't have that basic idea. What would you tell that person?
Well, story work is complicated. I think as a coach, having learned from you just over the years, the challenge, first of all, is holding the space for the individual to do the work. Because story work is very personal. It's very individual. And I think the temptation there is to try to help them in that work, maybe guide it along. And while you sometimes have to nudge in a few directions, I think holding that space and the discomfort of that space, because what we've done is created a process. You've done a lot of this work to make it look easy, but really it's pretty difficult to do good story work. So you're talking about someone who's in a loop consistently, I'm not worthy. So how that might show up in a client situation, which I have a connection where I can connect it to a real situation. But this event happens to a type of leader who wants to upgrade their life. They want to be promoted. They want to get to this next level. They believe they have talents and capacity for this new opportunity or this new thing. So the promotion comes, which is an event that occurs, right? So we drew out the diagram.
So the event actually happened.
The event happened.
They got the promotion.
The invitation.
Yep.
It's the invitation for the promotion.
Okay, great.
Some might say, hey, it's an opportunity came their way, and immediately they're feeling these feelings of like shame. It's triggering a sense of, I'm uncomfortable with this. And what it's doing is it's leading them to hide or dodge or avoid or defer and not show up and actually possess it. It's one thing to get a compliment and be invited to the table for an opportunity. It's another thing to grab a hold of it.
Yeah, you got to actually show up, right?
So this person's saying they want something, but they're not acting into it. So it's like, what's that about? So getting curious back to what is the story? Well, here you have an unworthy story, or maybe it's an I'm not wanted. And to get to that place of really clarifying can take a process. And so sometimes when we say, okay, there's a story playing here that's leading you to unhelpful behavior, only the author can really know about the story and even begin to revise the story. So if it's not a helpful story, let's find a better one. And sometimes a better one has to suffice until we find the best one.
Yeah.
Right? We're doing it. What I found is one way to help a client if they're stuck and the wise shovel doesn't bring them down into that boiling point, is two other ways to look into story. One is limiting beliefs. And so a limiting belief is usually going to show up in an I am statement, but it's usually in a limiting way. I am not worthy, right? I am not wanted. I am not loved. I mean, and the list just goes on and on and on. If you can get a client to there, I think you've gotten pretty far down into the root of potentially that story, and you start to go, okay, what's the next version? Another doorway in, though, if a client's struggling with really building out of that a new story, is looking at it through the lens of what might be called a false priority.
What's that?
And so a false priority is anything that might show up as a higher priority than the thing I've defined as the goal or the success target that I'm aiming for. So for example, if you have a goal of wanting to be a great leader or a good leader, growing in your leadership, but you have also this desire to be liked by everyone, well, if that desire to be liked by everyone has a greater pull on you, a greater influence on you than actually being a good leader, then you might at times where you're forced with the decision to make a decision as a leader that makes you unpopular, you may actually cave to being a good leader and play to the crowd. When that happens, that's a false priority. So it's another way to go, okay, what is that story about? Because that becomes a barrier when it's at play to me getting the thing I want. So in this case, what I would do with the person who says I'm not worthy, it's holding them up from going after the thing they want. I would say, okay, are there ways to get into identifying that limiting belief, or is there false priority playing into that? And then what's the next version, a better version of that story?
How do we upgrade the story that gets us closer to getting the
Gets us
outcome?
closer to that. So
You opened by saying that that's not easy.
not easy.
That's a process. Help us understand how you would walk someone through that process.
Well, like the why shovel is a really good opening to that, because you just start asking questions. So it might start off on the surface like, well, I don't know. Not everyone gets a promotion, or not everyone gets this thing that it's not. I shouldn't expect that. Okay, why? That might show up that way, right? I shouldn't expect that. So then you just sit and you go, well, why? Well, because, not everyone gets those opportunities. Why do I deserve it? Okay, well, why? And so it keeps leading to this point of I'm not worthy. And then I would send them home, and I would say, now come back with a real clear understanding of what the negative story is in that, in the best way you can describe it.
Yeah.
What's that story? And then I would say, come back then with a better version of that. So for me, I had a situation where I knew that I had a level of communication in my leadership, a style, a capacity, and a desire to actually communicate well. So not just influencing as a leader, but using communication to do that. I enjoy it. When it comes to like in a ministry setting, I enjoy preaching. I enjoy crafting a conversation around an idea. In leadership, that's part of why I like to coach, is you get to develop content and speak. And I realized though that there was a period in certain situations I was actually avoiding, and I didn't realize that I was not stepping into certain opportunities that were coming my way. They were invitations coming my way.
Yeah.
But I was actually deferring and deflecting and hiding and avoiding. And I realized at some point, and it was because I understood of this tool of story work, I realized that I had to get to what was the story going on. And when I did the work of, okay, when this type of invitation comes, it was a type of invitation, I end up feeling inferior. I end up feeling a little bit lost. I end up feeling less than. I end up feeling kind of afraid. And as a result, I tend to avoid, I hide, I say no, I reject. And sometimes I get resentful and bitter as a result of that.
Yeah.
So the story was around this idea that if I communicate in my style, in my voice, that's not wanted.
Yeah.
So then it was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that's okay. Why? Well, because there's a certain style out there that's a popular style and I don't fit. Okay, well, why? Because, I'm not a fit. Wait, I'm not a fit. So now it's getting really personal.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, because if I communicate in my voice, then people reject me. Ooh, where's that going? I'm a reject. So underneath this crazy story of not stepping into certain types of communication was this reject story. And it connected all the way back to a leader in my life in my mid-20s who was a leader that I was aspiring to be, I was being mentored by, who hurt me in a real personal way that caused me to go, okay, anything that represents that type of situation, I'll never give that power again because it hurts.
Yeah.
And so then anything that goes there, I won't touch it. So what I had to do is actually go back to say, no, actually, the people in my life who offer me invitations want the best for me. And as a result of me seeing communication on my life, give me opportunity to communicate, and they give me feedback. And that feedback is so that I can improve.
Yeah, they're all for you.
Not to hurt me. Yeah, correct. So anyway, I mean, it's complicated because it's connected usually to something that we put up a wall. And until we're willing to go around there, we really do get stuck in certain capacities. And we can blame that our whole life, or we can look in, do the work, change it, and then all of a sudden step into a whole new opportunity for us.
That's awesome. So the question is, what would you do? You've heard what Mitch's answer to this situation is, but if you have thoughts and comments, we'd love to hear about them. But you're probably facing the same scenario in your life where it's either you or someone that you're working with or someone you're mentoring who is stuck and they're playing around with limiting beliefs or false priorities, or they just don't know why or what their story is. How do you handle that? We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.